again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
What's up, guys? Welcome to RMR, and today we are going to be watching the second episode of Bucketheads. This is, let's see, what do they call this? They call this Season 1, Chapter 2. So it's a little confusing. The previous episode, I believe they consider to be a prelude, and if you look deep enough into the abyss that is my channel, you can find my reaction to the first episode, and it wasn't much of a reaction. I had already seen that episode, and the same goes for this episode as well. I have already seen this episode a couple of times, but for today, I will be scoring it with the Rotten Meiloorun score, so that'll be fun. And just want to make note of the people responsible for this episode. We've got Marco Bissau and Andy Brown as the directors. We've got Michael Nevada as the writer. And of course, it's starring Troy Mundell, Victoria Suter, and Joey Monroe. Cinematography by, again, Marco Bissau, Andy Brown. The editor was, man, I'm going to butcher this guy's name, so forgive me. We've got Jose Sanchez, and we've got the original score by Samuel Kim. So with that said, please hit like and subscribe. We need your support. Get that algorithm going. And without further ado, let's watch Bucketheads Episode 1, Chapter 2, Ground Zero. Here we go.
Previously on Bucketheads.
Stay coming!
I'll provide covering fire. You make a run for Lyra.
That's suicide.
That's an order, soldier.
Let's go!
He didn't make it.
Fall back.
Save yourself, go. I'll cover you.
What's your name?
It's Derek.
If I go, you should know where I'll be. You won't find a hero, you won't find peace, you won't find a savior, you'll find
Nova Squad, As per Imperial Military Code, you are to be disciplined for your role in the desertion of Inferno Squad during Operation Cinder.
The punishment is selective decimation by firing squad. Proceed, Captain Soretta.
What a pile of directs dung. It's not our fault. Those dang cowards ran away.
The decimation order serves to instill vigilance towards those who would disband our cause. It has been quite effective.
Sergeant Coven.
Captain Soretta, step aside. Captain Soretta, step aside.
It's so messed up.
General on deck.
Leave us.
Captain Soretta. Emperor Rax has given your squad a second chance. You're to find and capture a defector. Return him alive for questioning.
Wouldn't the ISB normally handle that, sir?
Shall I call the death troopers back in?
No, sir. That won't be necessary.
The details are in the dossier.
General Keto, has this been verified?
Perhaps, Captain, you should request an audience with the Emperor and ask him yourself.
To touchdown on level 1313.
Nice little callback there, 1313.
Meiloorun. However, will the men know who to follow?
Throws off my aim. Don't know how Oberyn dealt with it. We served together. Scarif, Jeddah, Kashyyyk, Endor. Saw him die with my own eyes, Nomi.
And many more have died since. But you're the captain now. Doesn't matter if you wear a fancy garment or not. These men need a leader.
2 minutes.
I thought I'd keep it as a reminder. Second chances. Almost start today.
The night is young.
Get ready.
Troopers! Emperor Rax has tasked Nova Squad with a capture mission. A traitor from our very own ranks assumed KIA during the Battle of Endor. Former Captain Oberyn Gunn. We are to capture him alive and to bring him back to the ultimatum for questioning.
Hold on. The rebellion is stronger than ever, and we're hunting down one of our own?
Lock that down, Private.
He may look like us. He may fight like us. But he is not one of us.
Yes, sir!
Remember your oath.
Through fire and blood! Fire and blood!
Weapons hot. Backup is 1,000 levels away.
Blue Panther, your hyperfuel for the day.
Business, step aside.
Yeah, he's wondering if you Bucketheads have an appointment.
Martial law is still in effect for the lower levels. You can thank the rebellion for that. Non-compliant dissidents will be treated as enemy combatants. Now step aside.
Yeah, he says the Undercity doesn't recognize your authority.
Last warning.
Anybody else?
Didn't think so. Great. Get that door open.
What are you looking at me for?
Deploying flash bomb.
Breach!
Hey!
Nova 3, Nova 5, secure the corridor. The rest with me. Go, 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 go!
Clear. Clear.
Table.
Clear. What the?
What is it?
Looks like a piece of human skin.
Watch it!
Get on the ground!
Get on the ground!
Let him go!
Careful, he's augmented.
Over and through. Iron flag.
On your knees, traitor! Don't you move!
You look like death, Oberyn.
Command, this is Nova 1. Target is in custody.
Okay, folks. So, after further review and just kind of mulling over my second watch of this episode, first of all, fantastic. Obviously, this is a very, very, very impressive fan-made Star Wars production. Just like the first episode, it's just incredible to see what the fans are becoming capable of. I remember watching the first episode and talking about it. One of the things I mentioned is that we are reaching a very unique place in the fandom right now, and just as a time in terms of cinema in general, is that even people who aren't part of big studios like Lucasfilms or Universal or Warner Bros. Like we are finding ways to produce cinema in our own way, and yes, it's on a lower budget, but dang it if we don't get creative with it, right? And this is such a great example of people coming together, using their passion as the driving force of their project, and getting creative with the tools that they have access to. I mean, you look at the credits, Marco Basau and Andy Brown, they're doing 3 different major production roles simultaneously. I mean, there's so many reasons why that helps them. One, obviously from a budget standpoint, it's just cheaper if you are a director and the cinematographer and the editor, maybe even one of the lead actors. I mean, you are covering so many bases. It's going to save you a lot of money because you're not hiring for those positions because you're covering them. So there's obviously a plus there, but also it's just because they are doing that, there is a unified vision for this series, and it's so obvious. The vision behind this concept is so loud, and you can see where they're going. It is such a compelling concept, and that's one of my biggest points that I wrote down, is that the concept of the Empire trying to recover after the events of Return of the Jedi. I've always wanted to see that in live action. We've gotten comics in the past, like Enter the Empire, what's the other one? Dark Empire, the one with the Sidious clones, and Luke is kind of toying with the dark side. You know, we've gotten hints of that in the books and the comics, but I've always wanted to see that in live action, and they've done such a great job of giving us that perspective from through the eyes of a stormtrooper. You know, we're not 1,000 feet up like most Star Wars projects per se, and that's normally the case with fan films. Is you're not going to get the big apocalyptic literature, the scale that comes with something that massive like what we normally get with Star Wars. With fan films, it's more enclosed, and the perspectives are usually smaller characters, and I think this works in their favor very well, because we don't have anything canon specifically that's focused on stormtroopers. So, and the Bucketheads concept, very fun, very cool. The direction is there. I'm here for it. I'm very entertained by it. The acting is another thing about this film that is that's really good. I love it when I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm going to get pulled out of the story. Acting is so powerful in the sense that it can pull you deeper into the story, but it can also snap you right out of it. You know when you see bad acting, and you know when you see good acting. And I saw some good acting here. I mean, it's not fantastic. They're not going to get Oscars anytime soon, but it's good, efficient acting that keeps you in the story, keeps you invested, makes you want to get to know these characters, and they do a really good job. Visual effects, I mean, what more is there to say? I mean, the visual effects in this thing is incredible. I mean, it's on par with Lucasfilm. I mean, it's almost you can't differentiate it. There are a couple of times, I will say, when the dropship is moving across the screen, or when it's going down the 1313 pit or whatever. There are a couple of moments where you can kind of tell that they're using the model approach for those shots, like what they did in the original trilogy and in the Meiloorun. So they'll have a model of the ship, and they'll have like a green screen or a black surface behind them, and then they'll move the camera appropriately, and then overlay it over their VFX shot so that it looks like the model is the actual dropship flying through the Coruscant cityscape. I love it when people do that, because you're using old cinema, old special effects to tell modern cinema, and I think that's really fun. But it's really easy to make it look fake, and there were a couple of moments where it looked a bit jarring, but it was okay. I thought they did a great job. The VFX shot of the Star Destroyers outside the planet, unbelievable. That looked so good. It looked straight out of the movies. So again, just like the first episode, VFX is just great. It's amazing. What this one had over the first episode was the sets and the costumes. We saw aliens, we saw humanoids, we saw grungy, dirty makeup on human faces. That's another thing. It's like, it's not like they're taking a handful of dirt and rubbing all over it. Like, no, like you can actually see like creases and specific blemishes that they put on the Asian's face while they're eating the noodles. Like there was a specific concept behind the blemishing that they wanted, and they did a really good job. It just feels very neat. It's none of the makeup is muddy in any way. The Dathomirian looks great, and then obviously the stormtroopers look fantastic, and the sets was amazing. Like the Coruscant underlevels, it looked so good, and it felt so big. Like they did a great job of picking their shots carefully and positioning and blocking everything so that it feels big. It feels like Coruscant. There's never a moment where I felt like they were inside of a studio or on a set. It felt like they were there, and that is always the goal when you are building a set, is you don't want it to feel like a set. You want it to be what the story needs it to be. And they did a fantastic job with that. However, that said, this is not a perfect fan film, and there's a couple of reasons why. There's two main things I really want to touch up on, and one of those things is the soundtrack. Samuel Kim is fantastic. I've always been excited when I see his name in credits, whether it's Star Wars Theories videos or it's Bucketheads. I'm always listening to his new content. I'm a huge Sam Kim supporter, but I do feel like he fell a little short with this film, this episode of Bucketheads. I think the beginning 6 minutes are really great. I think he did a fantastic composition. It feels very Star Wars. It feels very imperial and ominous, and he doesn't try to involve himself too much, which I think is it's such a fine line, especially with Star Wars, because on one hand you can be like John Williams and you're not going to get anything close to John Williams, so you just shouldn't even try. But some people really go for it, and sometimes they hit, sometimes they miss. You can, so there's the one hand. On the other hand, you can go for more of a Clone Wars Season 7 Kevin Kiner, where it's almost this ambionic Blade Runner Arrival type of a score, where it just kind of stays in the background and doesn't really try to be too much, but it fits the environment. That kind of adaptive sort of ambiance. And I think that's really enjoyable too, and it's really kind of grown on me personally as a Star Wars fan, because it doesn't take me out of the story. When I hear Kevin Kiner's sort of ambionic music, I actually really like it. So there were times where Sam Kim went for that Kevin Kiner-esque feel in this film, and I think he did a decent job at the first 6 minutes. After the 6 minute mark, it really starts to turn into this crazed synth mosh pit, and it, for me personally, it just didn't work. It might be different for some people. Some people might really like it. Obviously, the directors really like it because they kept it that way and they directed Sam Kim in that manner. For me personally, I did not feel like I was watching Star Wars when we started getting that synth mosh pit of a soundtrack, and especially in the runaway, the fugitive, in his little apartment room, especially in that scene there, that little segment. I just wasn't a fan of what the soundtrack was doing to the moment. It just felt very cheap, and I don't want to say cheap because that might not be the right word to use, but I can't think of any other word right. It was a little too synth, a little too Daft Punk, and it just didn't work for me. The other thing that I want to talk about that I think was a miss big time was the writing for this particular episode. Now, I want to again remind you, I think the concept of this series is really compelling. I really like the idea. I think the first episode was really fun. I do recall not feeling too connected with the characters. I didn't really care about any of the characters or what was happening to them, and I still feel that way about this episode. Not nearly as much as I did in the previous episode. There were character moments in this episode that I really liked and made me enjoy the characters and made me feel for them a lot more than the first episode. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I didn't care about the characters in this episode, because I did. Suddenly I cared about Torin, and I cared about the girl, I forget her name, played by Victoria Souter. I felt for her. especially when she was facing the firing squad, and yet she still serves the Empire loyally, and she keeps that little marker with her as a reminder. I was really compelled by that. I really liked that, and it makes me want to understand her character more, and I'm invested in Torin. I want to get to know him more, but there still feels like a barrier where I'm not there with the characters. And so on that sense, the writing for this episode was a bit off, because we should be there by now. We should be connected with the characters. We're 2 episodes in. We should care about our main cast. I would say I'm about 70% there. I'm 70, and I want to be 100% there, and I'm just not. I also felt like after the 6-minute mark, the episode became very rushed. I'm curious to know what their shooting schedule was like, because especially when they enter into the apartment complex, it just feels like they ran out of time, and it felt so rushed. And I lost focus, and it was hard to get a grasp of what was happening, why it was happening, and then the payoff just didn't work for me. We get teased that, this guy, Oberon, he may look like us, he may fight like us, but he's not one of us. And then when we finally meet him, he's not wearing any sort of Imperial armor, so he doesn't look like them. And then he fights like a rebel, like, guerrilla warfare. He's sneaking around, and then he jumps out of nowhere, and he's augmented. There's nothing Imperial about the way that he's fighting either. So it seemed like as a watcher going in, it feels like they're setting up for this sort of Imperial fugitive versus Imperial loyalist. And then it just ends up turning into an Imperial apprehending some mech from the Book of Boba Fett, the bikers, the biker gang, So I'm a little disappointed that the payoff did not serve well to the story. It didn't feel cohesive. The second half felt very lackluster compared to the first half, which I thought the first half was great. If it carried on into the second half of this episode, it would have blown the first episode out of the water. But right now, I do feel like the first episode is, so far, the best episode of the 2. But all that said, after I talked about the highs, talked about the lows, I want to give the Bucketheads Episode 2, or Episode 1, Chapter 2, a Rotten Meiloorun score of 63%. Great job, Marco Bissau, Andy Brown. You guys were wonderful. I cannot wait for the next episode, the next installment. I'm actually highly considering supporting them financially. So, and you guys should too. This is the future. I thoroughly believe that this is the future. When Disney can't deliver, it's the fans' job to do it themselves. And so, if you have a couple of bucks, find a way to support these guys, because they are fantastic at what they do. And we want to see this series come to completion. And also I want to close by saying hit like and subscribe, all that good stuff, because again, the algorithm is a monster, and we've got to take it down one sword swing at a time. All right. And also be sure to check out my Patreon page. And there's a couple of reasons why you should check out my Patreon page. I mean, you got the cliches like exclusive, blah, blah, blah. But seriously, I'm putting up Patreon exclusive videos where I actually break down how I would have made the fan film, what changes I would have made that I think would have made the episode better. So you get to see my thought process and all of that. You also get to see me work on my own personal projects step by step, whether I'm in the writing process, the casting process, pre-production, all that stuff. You get to see exclusive content that nobody else is seeing. And also, on the other hand, I am actually sponsoring a child in Kenya, and your support on Patreon actually helps me provide service for that kid over in Kenya. He's getting clean water, he's getting education, he'll be going to school, and he'll be fed 3 meals a day, and he's just being provided with a lot of blessings. And your support on Patreon is actually helping me provide funding for him. So your support on Patreon would mean the world, not just for the kid I'm sponsoring in Kenya, but also for the channel as well. You get exclusive content, and it helps me provide you guys with fun stuff on YouTube, and it helps me as a freelance videographer do my job and support myself. So please consider getting on Patreon. And also leave in the comments another fan film that you would like me to check out. But as for the follow-up episode to Rotten Meiloorun reviews, I will be checking out the A-list Sakura fan film. I believe it's just called Sakura. So I will be watching that on the next episode of RMR. But leave in the comments a fan film that you'd like me to check out. That's all I've got for you guys today. We'll see y'all next time. And as always, may the force be with you.
I want you to get out of this office right now.
I'm sorry, Sam.
No way. No way.